Hello everyone, we'll begin with module 2, that is ARM Cortex M3 instruction sets and programming. In this video, we'll look into the assembly language instructions of Cortex M3 processor. So before that, any processor hardware is designed to encode the instructions as sequences of zeros and ones. So the machine can understand only the language of zeros and ones. This is because the hardware of the processor consists of switches, transistors, and this can understand only 0 and ones. But for a human being to write a program using these bit patterns, that is patterns of zeros and ones, is a tedious job. That is why when the programmers want to specify some task to the processor, then he'll be using instructions for instructing the processor. So these instructions are called as the program formed using these instructions is called as assembly language instructions, right? And there is something called as an assembler in between, which translates the file containing the assembly language code into the corresponding machine language. So machine can understand only the language of zeros and ones. For humans it is difficult, so we use the textual form of the instructions called as assembly language, and there is something in between, sitting in between, that is the assembler, which does the interpretation job. That is, it converts or translates the assembly language instructions to machine language for the machine to process, right? So the textual words that are used in assembly language to specify a task are called as mnemonics. Before moving on to the actual instruction set, I'll recall what we have already studied in module 1. So earlier, the earlier ARM processors consisted of only one instruction set, that is the 32-bit ARM instruction set. That means all the instructions in the ARM instruction set were 32-bit long. Since they could perform all the operations, all the tasks required for any application, this instruction set was very powerful and obviously it was giving good performance. But since these instructions were long, that is 32-bit wide, they occupied a large program memory compared to the 8-bit or the 16-bit processor, and hence consumed larger power. Then in 1995, that is when the ARM 7 processors came into existence, the Thumb 1 instruction set was developed. So this Thumb 1 instruction set consisted of 16-bit instructions. So this Thumb 1 instruction set was nothing but a subset of the larger 32-bit ARM instruction set. That means the commonly used instructions, or the instructions that were used to do the commonly used task, right? So these were included in this 16-bit thumb instruction set, and because the instructions were only 16-bit, obviously it was giving better code density compared to the 32-bit architecture. That means whenever you have most of the time we'll be using frequently used instructions like the add, move, multiply, all these things. So these instructions could be written in using the 16-bit thumb instruction set, and hence it was occupying less memory, and hence in less memory more code could be accommodated. So that is what we call as good code density, right? Better code density compared to 32-bit architecture. So because of this, the code size was reduced by nearly 30%, but the performance of the processor was also reduced by 20%. this was not something that is acceptable. That is, the 32-bit ARM instruction set provided good performance, whereas the thumb 1 16-bit thumb 1 instruction set provided high code density. So to get the benefit of both the worlds, there was a mix of ARM and thumb 1 instruction sets formed. So the processors could use both the instruction set, that is, whenever it was using instructions that are available in the thumb 1 instruction set, it used those instructions, and whenever there are no instructions for a particular task in the thumb 1 instruction set, then it would go use the 32-bit ARM instructions. But the disadvantage was the processor had to switch from ARM mode and thumb mode, right? So whenever it was using thumb instruction, it had to operate in the thumb mode, and whenever it was using ARM instructions, it had to operate in the ARM mode. So this switching overhead was required. So every time it had to switch from ARM mode to thumb mode, or from thumb mode to ARM mode. So this was consuming time and also resources. So next, the thumb 2 instruction set was formed to overcome this drawback as well. So this comprised of both the 32-bit thumb instructions and the original 16-bit thumb 1 instruction sets. That means whatever tasks were performed using the 32-bit ARM instructions were here now performed by the 32-bit thumb instructions, and of course the original 16-bit thumb 1 instruction set was also included. So this you can call as a superset of the 16-bit thumb instructions and the 32-bit ARM instructions. So as you know, since all the instructions are included here, all the tasks can be performed only in this one instruction set, that is the thumb 2 instruction set. So compared to 32-bit ARM instruction set, the code density here is reduced by 26% while keeping a similar performance. So it could also reduce the code density and also obtain or achieve a similar performance like a 32-bit ARM instruction set. So one more thing that was overcome here was that switching overhead. That is, the processor was not required to switch from ARM mode to thumb mode or thumb mode to ARM mode. Okay. So this overhead is also reduced. So the Cortex M3 processor is a ARM v7m architecture, and here it supports only 32-bit thumb 2 instructions, and because of this it is possible to handle all processing requirements in one operation state. That means there is no need to switch from ARM mode to thumb mode. It will be always in the thumb mode. That is why you will learn later that the least significant bit will be always 1, because we'll see that later. So this bit is there to switch between ARM mode and thumb mode. That is, when it is 0, it will be in the ARM mode. When it is 1, it will be in the thumb mode. But since here Cortex M3 supports only thumb 2 instruction set, so it should be always in thumb mode. That is why this bit will be always maintained at 1. So compared with the traditional ARM processor, the advantages of this Cortex M3 instruction set is, first thing is the switching overhead is reduced. That is, because of this, the execution time is increased, and also the instruction space is reduced. Okay. So it requires less memory to hold the instructions or the program, and also it can be executed in lesser time because this switching overhead is reduced, is avoided. And that's what, there is no need to maintain separate ARM code and thumb code source files. This is on the software point of view. That is, this makes the development and maintenance of software easier, and also it is easier to get optimized efficiency and performance. With this introduction, we'll move on to the actual Cortex M3 instruction set. So the syntax of an ARM assembly instruction will look something like this. That is, it will have a label, a mnemonic, operand 1, operand 2, and dot 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 here specifies there can be more than 2 operands, semicolon, comments. So here label is always optional. You can have the label or you can have the instruction without the label. This label is used as a reference to an address location. That is, sometimes when we want to use branch instructions, right? You have used this in C. We use jump branch instructions to some label. So that time we will require this label. Otherwise, you can skip this, right? And the essential part is this, the mnemonic. Mnemonic is the textual form of the specific task. So whatever task that instruction is going to perform will be specified by the mnemonic. Like the move is to move data from one place to another, or add is to add two numbers, multiply is to multiply two numbers. So each of these tasks have got their corresponding mnemonic in the instruction set, right? So that is what is to be there here. And then of course the operands. So operand 1, operand 2, and dot dot dot. So there could be more than two operands. Now in this case, when it is operand 1 is always the destination of the operation, and operand 2 is normally the source of the operation. Okay. So when it is move, it is move operand 2 to operand 1. And when it is add, if you have only two operands, it will be add operand 1 and operand 2 and save the sum in operand 1. So operand 1 here now functions as a destination register as well as one of the data, followed by semicolon comment. So here comments are written after the semicolon. So whatever follows after the semicolon symbol will be treated as a comment and it will be non-executable. It will not affect the program. So here is an example. Say move R3 hash 0x11, set register R3 to 0x11. So this is the instruction. So here move is the mnemonic. Usually these mnemonics are self-explanatory. Okay. So as the name itself specifies, it is to move data from one place to another. So as I have told, operand 1 is always the destination. So R3 is the destination. So you have to move something to R3. What you have to move? Here you have a constant is given. It is not any other register. Here a constant is given. Here what is called as immediate data. So immediate data always is to be preceded by hash symbol. So whatever follows the hash symbol is a immediate data or a constant value. So the immediate data value is 0x11. So always we will be specifying the data in terms of hex numbers. So the representation should always follow this, that is 0x, and this is the value 11. And semicolon, so whatever follows the semicolon here is the comment. So what I am telling is set the register R3 to 0x11. The Cortex M3 instruction set can be divided into these various categories, that is data processing instructions, data transfer instructions, block transfer instructions, branching instructions, multiply instructions, and software interrupt instructions. We look into each of these categories one by one. So firstly, I'll begin with the data transfer instructions, that is moving data. So data transfer instructions can be of four types. That is, four types of data transfer instructions can occur here in Cortex M3 instruction set. That is, first one is moving data between register and register. That is transfer of data between two registers. and second one is moving an immediate data value into a register. That is, just now we have seen the example. That is one category of data transfer instructions. Next one is moving data between special register and register. So we have learnt some of the special registers when we dealt with the Cortex M3 architecture. So for transferring data from a register to these special registers requires different data transfer instructions. The regular move instruction will not work here. The next one is moving data between memory and register. So as we know that Cortex M3 has a load store architecture. So there are only two instructions for loading memory. So loading data between memory and registers, that is load and store instructions. The first category of data transfer instructions is moving data between register and register. Here, both the destination and the source are registers. So one form of this category is move R8, R3. So I have included, I have demonstrating only one format. There are different formats, instruction formats, because this instruction uses thumb 2 instruction set, that is 32-bit instructions as well as 16-bit instructions. By default it will take 16-bit instructions. Okay, so to know the entire different formats, then you have to refer the programming manual of Cortex M3. I will just consider the commonly used mnemonics. So move R8, R3 moves the data from register R3 to register R8. As I have told, the first operand is always the destination and the second operand is the source in case of move. So whatever is there in R3 register will be moved on to the R8 register, and R3 will be retaining the value. It won't be erased, it will be retaining the previous value. There is another form of move instruction, that is MEN. MEN R8, R3. So here this is for moving negative of the data in the source to the destination. So here it will negate the data that is held in R3 and will move to R8. For example, if R3 was holding 0x6a, so 0x6a can be written in binary as 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Right? 6 is 0, 1, 1, 0 and a is 1, 0, 1, 0. So this MVN instruction finds the bitwise knot of the data in the source. So just negate this or complement this data what is there in R3. So it will be 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. Complement of 0 is 1, 0, 0, 1. Right? This results in 95. So MVN instruction will find the bitwise complement of the data in register R3 here and store it to R8. Next is moving an immediate data value into a register. So there are different forms depending on the size of the immediate value. So suppose you want to move an 8-bit value to a register, then the instruction is move R2, hash 0x25. So 25 is it can be any constant, but the immediate value should be preceded by a hash. As I have already told, the immediate value or the constant value should always be preceded by hash followed by 0x, because we'll be assigning data in the representing data in the hex format. So move R2, hash 0x25 will load the register R2 with the 8-bit value 0x25. So 8-bit means it will correspond to 2 hex digits. So it can take values from 00 to FF. In decimal it is 0 to 255. 2 power 8 is 256. Okay. So in hex it will correspond to 2 digits. If you want to move a 16-bit value, then the instruction will take the form move W. Okay, this is restricted for 16-bit data, for moving 16-bit immediate data. So move W R0 hash 0x789A. So 16-bit data means it will be comprising of 16 bits. Each 4-bit will correspond to 1 hex digit. So 16-bit will be corresponding to 4 digits of in hex, right? So here in the example I have taken move W R0 comma hash 0x789A. So this 16-bit data 789A will be moved to R0 when this instruction is executed. Now suppose you want to move a 32-bit data. As you know, the registers are 32-bit wide. So at the max we can transfer or move 32-bit data into our registers. So for moving 32-bit of immediate data, it cannot be done in one instruction here. You need to use a couple of 2 instructions, that is move W and move T. Okay. So move W. So I will be explaining this with an example. So move W dot W R0 hash 0x789A. So you have already done it, you have already seen it here in the 16-bit example. Move W R0 hash 0x789A will move this to R0. Move this 16-bit value to R0, right? So here there is an additional dot W. So this dot W, that's why just to demonstrate the different formats I have used here. You could have directly used move W and move T. I have included this dot W to just demonstrate this another format. So dot W corresponds to 32-bit instruction. Okay. So whenever you use a dot W, then the processor will take the 32-bit counterpart of the instruction, right? So without the dot W, it will by default take the 16-bit instructions. Okay. So to move a 32-bit immediate data, the set of these 2 instructions have to be used. Move W dot W R0 0x789A will move this 16-bit value in the lower half of R0. That is, this 789A will be stored in bits 0 to 15 of R0. Okay. And the second instruction is move T dot W R0 hash 0x3456. So move T means move top. So move top always moves whatever you have specified in the upper half word of the register. That is, it will copy the data into the bit numbers 16 to 31 of whichever destination register you have specified. Okay. So move T dot W R0 hash 0x3456 will set R0 upper half to 3456. So collectively R0 at the end of the execution of these 2 instructions, R0 will be holding the value 3456789A. As you see here, 789A will be occupying the lower half word and 3456 will be occupying the upper half word. The next category of data transfer instructions is moving data between special register and register. So while studying about the Cortex M3 architecture, we have seen it has got a set of special registers, namely PSR. PSRs is nothing but a combination of 3 registers, that is APSR, EPSR and IPSR. Then 3 interrupt mask registers, namely primary mask, fault mask and base priority register. and a control register. So to access these registers, the normal regular data transfer instructions are not used, but some special instructions are used. So the two special instructions are MSR and MRS. MSR stands for writing to the special register and MRS corresponds to reading from the special register. The names of these registers are slightly confusing. What you can do to remember is, in MRS R comes first. So R stands for read. So MRS is to read from the special register, and the other one, that is MSR, is to write to the special register. So I'll explain this with an example for each. So MRS R0, PSR. So this is to read the processor status word into register R0. So PSR, when I say PSR, it will be combined program status register. So all the three combined together as a 32-bit register, that is APSR, IPSR and EPSR, all combined into a single PSR. So this instruction will read the processor status word, the 32-bit value, into the, it will copy this value into the register R0. The next example is MSR control, R1. So as you know, control register, in this control register only the last two bits are valid, that is bit number 1 and bit number 0. And whatever needs to be returned to this register will be stored, that data will be stored in R1, and this instruction MSR control, R1 will copy this value in R1 into this control register. We have seen that the Cortex M3 operates in two modes, namely the user mode and the handler mode. So user mode is when the processor is executing normal operations, and handler mode is when the processor is handling exceptions. And these two modes can be in having two privilege levels, that is privileged access rights and unprivileged access rights, or user access rights. So apart from APSR, APSR stands for Application Process Status Register. This is the register which is comprising of the status flags. The flags are the ones which will be set or reset based on the output of a certain operation, execution, right? Some instruction execution, after some data processing instructions are executed, these flags will be updated. So apart from this APSR register, all other special register need to be accessed by these instructions, or that is written, the value can be written to these special registers only when the processor is having privileged access rights. I repeat, except for writing to the APSR register, writing to all other special registers can be done only when the processor is having privileged access rights. Okay.
Thank you.